My name is Dr. Kevin Pecca. I wanted to make a podcast that exposes people to the true miracles of life and health. All the guests on this show have been specially picked because they bring something positive to the world. They have some of the most amazing and inspiring life stories. These people have a passion for living, healing, and leaving the world better than they found it. There is something inside these people that made them keep fighting through all the tough times, even when people told them it was not possible. They carried on and made their lives beautiful again. And now they are sharing their experiences with the world. This is the Expect Miracles podcast. Enjoy the show. Today on the podcast, we have Steve Gonzalez. Steve has been one of my best friends since high school. We have done our best to keep in touch, but it has been about 10 years since I've actually sat down and had an in-depth conversation with him. Steve was born in a military family, graduated from West Point, went into the infantry, did a tour over in Iraq, and has just recently started a new career outside the Army. Steve has been on an absolute journey over the past 10 years, and today he talks about his story and his years of experience of being in the military. Steve is one of the most stand-up guys you'll ever meet, and I'm honored to call him a great friend. Please welcome Steve Gonzalez. Steve, how are you?
Oh my God, this is crazy.
Dude, it's been a solid probably 10 years since I've actually sat down and...
Yeah, man. Since it's been more than you and me meeting at a bar for one night every 3 years,
yes,
this is it, man.
Or
we're back.
Yeah, dude, pumped.
Yeah, you were at my wedding, but there's 180 other people I have to say hi to the whole time. So
yeah, that's a lot. You did it well though. You made your rounds well.
Dude, that was hard. Good time though. Good party.
Good time. My favorite, by the way, this is a quick side note. My favorite person at your wedding was your buddy from Denver who refused to leave the bar before anybody else. That was his mission that night. What was his name? That doesn't
surprise me. It's probably Sean Cochran.
Yeah.
He's a psychopath. He's actually a Green Beret. He's Special Forces right now, so be terrified for your country.
Okay.
He's a great guy.
You have had an absolute journey over the past 10 years. Would you say so?
Yeah, man. So it's just been an absolute wild ride. It feels so good to be home. So I just moved home April 1st-ish. And actually my last official day in the Army was on Monday.
Really?
For the first time since I was 17 years old, Mr. Steve Gonzalez.
Wow.
No more ranks, no more nothing.
I mean, has it even hit you yet that you're out?
It's been kind of a slow process just because I took 60 days of my vacation. So I got out and I moved away from Fort Carson in Colorado, back home to Pennsylvania, the end of March, early April. But it's crazy, man. It's waking up and looking around on my wall and seeing all these photos of stuff I've done. And now it's just I don't wake up and put on a uniform anymore. It's just,
well, are you around the same 20 to 50 dudes all day long? How does that work?
No, man. It depends. So you have different jobs. In the 6 years that I was active duty, I spent about maybe 8 months in training. We'll get into this too if you want to go kind of chronologically. It's 8 months in training with guys your same rank. Then you go to your first unit and you kind of progress through certain jobs. It's all based on time and what your rank is. Yeah. So you're all over the place. I was at 2 posts. You have different jobs through the whole thing where you have different responsibilities. But generally when you're in one job, you're around the same dudes all day. So every year you're around the same group of dudes.
Gotcha.
But it was awesome.
To give the people a little chronological order of your life here. So you were born into a military family, no?
Yeah. So my dad spent 28 years in the Army as an officer, and he actually got out in 2013 and I was already an officer. So we spent a year.
That's awesome.
Together where he was a full bird colonel and I was a little bitch second lieutenant, a nobody. And that was pretty cool to have. So he was around my rank now, or what I used to have a couple weeks ago when he had me. And I was born in Hawaii.
You were born in Hawaii. That's right.
We moved around all the time. So I moved probably, I think it was 9 or 10 times before I got to Jersey for middle school and high school. So essentially every year and a half before I actually got to Jersey.
Dude, so you were the new kid every year.
Yeah, I mean, it's
what was that like?
I mean, remembering my perspective as a little kid, it's all you think about is your little group of friends you got. And
right.
I like my school. I like my little soccer team or whatever.
Yeah.
That's all that matters in the world. So you don't see the rest of it. So you're just this is terrible. This is horrible. I can remember my sister and I, especially when my sister's 4 years older than me, she was always ahead of me in maturity and having more friends. And I remember this, she was at a year in high school in Maryland before we moved up to Jersey. So she was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
Had all her friends, had her sports teams. And then my dad's like, sorry, dude, we're out.
Uprooted. Yeah.
So, I mean, that was tough.
Yeah.
And now I see it as a benefit because I walk into a room, no matter what I'm doing, and I'm always a new kid. It's like, I'm a professional new guy. Like, I never know anybody. I never know anybody. I never know what to say to people. It's just like I'm comfortable in that position, which is an advantage now because, moving into the corporate world and whatnot, it's like, I'm always a new guy.
Absolutely.
Until I get settled for a couple of years, which is, I mean, surely down the line a little bit.
But I think you always handled that well. Like, I remember the first time, like, I met you, I think we were at like Generals hockey practice or something. And like,
I was trying to think about it too. Cause were you playing Titans or Eagles when we were in like, before I came to RBC? I can't remember.
I think I was at Brick Hockey Club before the Generals.
But either way, yeah. So I went to Monmouth Regional, the high school that was closest to Fort Monmouth, where my dad was stationed in Jersey for my freshman year.
Right.
So that year is when I started playing AA with you, Matt Sadecki, Jared, Pat Brannigan. That's when we were all, I think you were on that team with me, right? Either way, so going into RBC, because I went to RBC my sophomore year, because my dad, being the total bro that he is, recognized that like I didn't have anything that I was like falling in love with at Monmouth.
Right.
They didn't have a hockey team. It's a public school. Like not everybody has that. So he was like, let's get you to this Catholic school, even though we're not Catholic. It didn't matter. It was all about hockey.
Yeah.
He was just like, we'll get you there because all your friends are on this team that we played for with the Generals. Went to RBC, and it was just the easy decision. So,
and you and Alessi were over there too, right? You and Alessi were over at Monmouth Regional. Were you boys with Alessi freshman year? Or?
Yeah, I can remember that. Actually, now that I think about it, we had like some stupid film class where he would always be sneak and dip in the back of class or something. Typical Alessi. Yeah, so I forgot about that too. So we had some buddies rolling in. So I went into RBC less of a new kid than I was used to because I knew some people, but still, like walking into the halls of something new, it's like, I mean, it's just been my life.
Well, dude, you have a gift, my friend. You are one of the few people that I can count on one hand that have like a special ability to just make people laugh like hard. And like not many people have that. And I think it might be because you moved around so much. You're like just constantly trying to like whatever that is, you have it. And it's impressive.
I appreciate that, man. That's pretty cool to hear.
Like, because I remember the first time like I was in a room, we used to do those dry land and we used to combine the teams. And so like you weren't on my team. But like, dude, you were doing some hilarious shit. I was like, who is this kid?
Just being a character. Yeah. You kind of have to like project yourself a little bit to when you walk into a new room, you got to make friends somehow. So that was probably my coping mechanism.
Yeah. And did you always know you wanted to go to West Point, or was that something you kind of put together like junior, senior year or what?
No. So I thought about this earlier, but it was kind of strange because when I have young kids, because I get it a lot now, whether it's ROTC kids that are in college that are asking me like advice for being in the Army, or high school kids saying, why'd you want to be in the Army? It's like, I wish I could say I had some higher calling that like I wanted to serve my country when I was 16 years old, but who knows what they want to do when they're 16.
Right.
It's like the way that I know I saw it even back then, and I'm glad I did, was I had 3 heroes in my life. My grandfather, who was a 1960 grad from West Point, served in Vietnam, served 25 years in the Army, retired as a colonel. My dad served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He did 28 years, retired as a colonel. And then my sister actually married a West Point graduate. When I was 16, I think they might have been dating. I think they got married when I was 17, but like he really became the guy that I really looked up to as
he's
like
the
my
man.
modern hero. He wasn't the guy that did it before. He's the guy doing it right now.
Right.
And he went on to serve in the 75th Ranger Regiment, like the baddest group of motherfuckers on this planet. It's one of those special operations guys. And he did that. And it was like, I looked up to that my whole life. And even though I didn't know what I wanted to do, like you didn't know you want to be a chiropractor when you were 16.
No. Dude, if someone told me I was going to be a doctor when I was 15, I probably would have laughed.
Dude, all I saw when I was 16 was Mr. Ross's English class. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So I got to figure something out.
Oh, man. That guy
Remember that guy?
That guy was very strange.
It's creepy.
Very
I hope he's listening to this. But I just knew that I wanted to be like them in some way.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do they have in common? I mean, they're all in the Army. So I figured my best way of doing it was to go to West Point. And it sort of follows the line that like the Army itself and the military really at large is a family business. Everywhere you go, when you talk to somebody, it's like, yeah, dude, my dad was in, my grandpa was in, my mom was in, everybody.
Yeah.
Like it's very rare that they have no ties to the military. It's such a family business. So
especially
it's kind of like
you go to West Point too, right?
Yeah, West Point's even more of like an old boys club. It's just like everybody's dad, grandpa, everybody went there. So I wasn't forced into it by any means because my dad he had a childhood that was kind of forced into a couple things. So he made sure that he was very standoffish with things like that.
Yeah.
So he didn't pressure me at all. I made the choice myself. And again, I wanted to be like those three. So I made that choice. And the application process started pretty early, as I remember in high school. It's like when you're like a sophomore, you start applying to West Point.
It's very impressive because me and you were doing the exact same things in high school. Like we were having fun, playing hockey, going out, but you somehow managed to get into West Point. When you got in, I was like, me and Gonzo were doing the same things. And like, he is crushing it. Like, but like you're one of those kids where like, you don't realize, like, was your head always in the books in high school? Because that's not how it seemed to me. It seems like you were almost just, you were naturally gifted at that.
I'm going to be honest. It was a little bit easier for me just knowing the fact that I had family members that went to West Point that knew the process.
Right.
And my dad was in the Army, so I had some sort of backing of like, so for example, you have to get, like any high school kid has to get a nomination, it's called, from a congressman to be appointed to West Point, to try and apply to West Point. So you go through this whole thing when you're a sophomore that's like interviews and all kinds of shit like that, where a congressman has to, so every state gets however many congressmen they have that times like say 10 for people they can nominate to actually apply to West Point. So you had to do that pretty early.
Yeah.
But because my dad was already in the Army, I had an automatic nomination.
Okay.
So things like that make it a little bit easier.
Little easier. You can still got to have everything down. But
And to be honest with you, and this kind of screwed me over my first year really at West Point, was like high school wasn't that hard.
No, it was a joke.
Like I essentially was on cruise control for 3 years at RBC. Like good school, good people. But like, dude, I didn't do anything.
No, nothing.
You saw what I did. Like I hung out with you and Sadecki all day. That's all I did. I'm not a dude that was like dug in the books. I mean, I certainly tried hard at things. Like I played 3 sports, you know, all through the year. I tried my best to do things like, I mean, I guess you don't really think about it, but you know, things that help are like, you know, being nominated as captain of a team.
Right.
And then the only thing I remember doing really hard, like, or actually trying really hard at, was you had to get your SATs to a certain point.
Right.
I was just grinding my junior year. And my parents sent me to like one of those prep classes, all kinds of stuff. So I did try in that sense, but I was essentially on cruise control through RBC, which I hate to admit that. Like, shout out to RBC, but
cold hard fact. Yeah. So I mean, you got in, and 2 other kids from our high school got in, which was pretty unheard of, right?
And like I'm talking about, the Beery brothers, their dad was also a lieutenant colonel. Like it's a family business. It's not random kids. I mean, the only random kids that go to West Point are usually athletes.
Yeah, very true.
Where they get recruited because like they're a smarter football player than your average moron that goes to like so-and-so state that's just like huge and 300 pounds. Like if they're pretty smart, they get recruited by Army dudes and they're like, what is this? Yeah, I'll go. Everybody else generally knew they wanted to go to West Point. So it's kind of like that, I guess. And
so you get into West Point and you go, and like, was day one a rude awakening?
I don't know if you knew this, but when we graduated, you probably don't remember this at least. When we graduated from RBC, 3 days later, I moved to Alabama because my dad, yet again, got stationed in Huntsville, Alabama.
Well, they were pretty generous with that too, right? Because they wanted to move, but they knew you were on the hockey team, and your dad's like, can we just...
Yeah, my dad was just lobbying left and right to keep me at least to graduate. So like the fact that he got me to that point was massive. But I will say, graduating high school 3 days later, moving to Alabama. And then the reason why that was hard was because I wanted to enjoy my life before I went to West Point, because I think I maybe had 3 or 4 weeks, because West Point for freshmen starts July 1st, somewhere around there every year, as opposed to like August, September for normal college kids. So I only had 3 days in Jersey, and then I moved down to Alabama of all places and knew no one, had nothing to do for a couple weeks before I went to West Point. And then what you were saying about, was it a shotgun blast to my face? Yes.
Yeah.
Like the first day you show up, they give you a report time. It's like, show up on July 1st with these items at this place from 9 to 12. Sometime in that window, show up. And you show up, and I sat down with my parents. I had my mom and dad with me. One of the upperclassmen walks out. It's like an auditorium kind of thing. And he walks out and he says, welcome to the United States Military Academy, class of 2012. I want to welcome you. You're about to embark on this 48-month journey. It's going to turn you into a leader in the United States Army. And then he like kind of looks around for a second, and he goes, you have 30 seconds to say goodbye to your families.
30 seconds.
And I was like, oh shit, like this is it. Is this it? And you know, my dad's been in the Army for 25 years this time. He's like, yeah, this is it, man. Like, you're out. See ya. And my mom's bawling, and I'm just like,
30
seconds. Is this it?
Wow.
So, hug mom, hug dad, start walking down
By
the
the
aisle.
time you realized, you probably had 5 seconds left.
Yeah, you know, you remember me. I was just a jackass when I was in high school. I was like, are you serious? But then, I mean, you walk to him, you go through the double doors, and that was it. You start, I mean, there's dudes with fingers in your face. Like, and everyone always said, this is the thing that I love. People are like, oh, I couldn't do that. If somebody had their hand in my face or they were yelling at me.
Yeah.
Like, I'd punch them. It's like, nah, no, you wouldn't, bro. I promise you wouldn't do that.
This guy's a trained killer. You wouldn't.
Not even that. Like, there's just kids at West Point. Like, our basic training that starts in our first summer, so right before your freshman year starts, it's all cadets that run basic training. I mean, this isn't getting detailed, but they have soldiers that are there, real soldiers from the Army, like there to help you out with stuff. But the cadets run it, and it's like a detail for them. They get graded on running basics. It's all this crazy system they got going on. But either way, it's like 60 days of straight, no phone, no computer, no nothing. You're writing letters home. You're waking up every single day at 4:30 in the morning, doing PT in the morning. And it's just like for a college kid.
And it's all day?
Oh, I mean, it's all day, every day. You have a bedtime. You're not allowed to talk outside your room as a freshman. Like, you can't talk to anyone outside of your room. I was a semi-grown up man. And I will say, looking back on it now, if I went back and did that, it would be a joke to me.
Yeah.
Because I've done it for 10 years. You know, it's so easy. Like that Army discipline thing just kind of comes naturally.
Yeah.
But when you're coming from 17 years old, fucking around with Kev and Sadecki, like straight into, you have 30 seconds to say goodbye.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to move fast. You got to pick up quick.
And do they just weed out a ton of people in that 60 days? Or, I mean, because most of the people have to know what they're getting into, right? Or did you see a lot of people just drop?
I mean, it's half and half. Some people understand better than others, but everyone kind of is like, I don't know what's going on. But the fact of the matter is, the system is not there to weed people out. They don't want to. They want to take people, mold them into what they want, as opposed to just slashing people out of the way.
Right.
So the classes go in, I'd say like 1,200. They come out between 950 and 1,000. So you drop 250 people or 200 people over the 4 years.
Okay.
But it's funny because the first day or first couple of days, there's always someone that quits, and they announce it over campus loudspeakers.
What?
Like, attention all cadets, we have our first quitter. And it's just like,
I love that.
Yeah, but I never went in thinking like, I don't know, some kids get shotgun blasted and they quit right away, but I was just like, I was always a new kid. So I'm used to it. I was used to like some new shenanigans I had to deal with. Yeah. And I knew I wanted to do it, so I stuck around. Yeah. For sure. And then, I mean, academics started, and then life gets a little better, and every year it gets a little bit better until you finally graduate. And then
I couldn't even grasp what you were going through. I remember you had one break, and we were back in Jersey. Like, how's college? I was telling you about it, and you were like, yeah, I get like a couple hours. Me and my buddies run to the liquor store, drink as much as we can, and run right back. Yeah,
that was when I met you down at Catholic, too. That was probably
your freshman year, I think.
Probably not. Because, so at West Point, this is insane. I haven't talked about this stuff in so long. It's so funny to think about it. But at West Point, no matter what age you go into your freshman year, so a lot of hockey players, for example, dudes come out of juniors, they're 21.
Yeah.
You can't drink your freshman, sophomore year, no matter how old you are.
Wow.
So, like, there'd be 21-year-old men as freshmen playing hockey, and they want to have a beer at night. You can't. No, sorry, man. You'll be kicked out.
Wow.
It's crazy. So we couldn't drink until I didn't turn 21 till late junior year. So that was when we really started, like me and my buddies. You're probably remembering when I came down to Catholic and met you.
You know what? I think it was it sophomore year? Because we were in Jersey.
I don't know. I don't even know. We would do anything we could because our partying was, I mean, we didn't party. It was nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I can remember vividly. I don't know why this sticks with me. It always does. Halloween, my first semester as a freshman. And it's like, this is before Instagram. This is before all that. The only thing we had was Facebook, really.
Yeah.
And it's during academics, so I'm kind of left alone to myself a little bit. But I can't talk outside my room. I have to walk on the walls, against the walls, in the hallways. I can't walk down the middle. It's just stupid shit all day.
Wow. Okay.
But it was Halloween. So everyone, that's like when all you guys were out partying like crazy.
Yeah.
And like the next day, everyone was uploading their photos from their Halloween parties.
Yeah.
And I remember me and my roommates looking at each other like, dude, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many slutty pumpkins, and like, I'm here and I can't talk to you outside my room. This is ridiculous. And that always, I don't know why that sits with me. I was so upset that like I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm starting to see it now.
You weren't missing much. Trust me.
That's the other thing. I would not change anything.
Yeah.
Because of how my life has turned out. Now, say I was super depressed. I didn't have anybody. Like, maybe I would change things. But my life is fantastic. Like, I met the girl of my dreams because of West Point. Obviously, because of her, we have our first kid. Yeah. Who's awesome, who you just saw.
Yep. Baby Charlotte.
Like, my life's good. And it's like, man, I put up with that stuff, and My dad used to say, he still kind of says to me once in a while, whenever I complained to him, he would just stop and be like, well, it's got to suck.
Yeah.
Like, it has to suck. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the Army way.
Yeah.
So,
dude, honestly, I feel like no matter what you go through in life and how bad a situation is, if you hang in there long enough, time will catch up with you and make it even better.
oh yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Like, that's just one of those things that I take away now that I'm out of the Army.
It's definitely retrospective.
Yeah. One of those like cliche things that I list in my head that I'm going to remember forever. It's like one of those is absolutely that it can always be worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Like when I listened to Alessi's podcast with you, like, dude, I was sitting there thinking like, oh, dude, this kid's got it. But I do think like what you're talking about, it's not one of those things you can just say to somebody. You can't walk up to some kid like that's in high school and be like, oh man, dude, it could always be worse. Cause they look at you like, yeah, okay, whatever, man.
Yeah. Very
You have
true.
to experience it.
Yeah.
And I finally had those things where I can say it could always be worse.
Yeah.
Because I can look at my daughter when she wakes up in the morning and it's just like, this is fantastic. It could always be worse. Like my life is awesome.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, moving forward.
Definitely, man.
Love it.
And then, so what did you want to get into? Like when you started going through West Point, was there a certain path you wanted to take in the military?
Yeah. So saying that you're in the Army is sort of like saying you work for Ford. It's like, okay, are you the CEO? Are you a salesman? Are you a mechanic? Like what do you do?
Yeah.
So, and we call them branches. There's 16 branches for officers to go into. And it's, infantry, armor, which is like tanks and stuff, aviation being the helicopter pilots, field artillery being the dudes that shoot cannons and stuff. So you really can choose what you want to do, but it's all based on your class rank. So at West Point, like your grades matter.
Yeah.
Everything matters. And your GPA, your overall GPA is made from your academics, your military grade, which is kind of an arbitrary thing you get from like doing certain jobs throughout the year. You kind of have like a position, and then also your physical grade. So your PT tests, like your physical tests, your physical classes that you take, like all that's factored in and you get a class rank. So at the
you
end
get
of
like a numerical.
I mean, it's down the line. It is down the line.
And are people just checking that like every week? Is it fluctuate?
I think you find out like, I seem to remember they'd like email out the list like after every semester. So you kind of knew where you were.
That's wild. Wow.
So for example, like if there's 200 slots for one branch, and numbers 1 through 200 in your class, choose those. Number 201, he's not getting that branch.
Yeah.
So like you have to work, and granted, it's not always 1 through 200. Like there's always kids that want different stuff.
Right.
Going through West Point, me and my buddies, my best friends, I had 4 best friends, and we all wanted to be in the infantry. So we always kind of had that. We never talked about it. Like that's kind of, it's just like weird. Bro, what do you want to do with your life? It's just, we all knew we wanted to do that. So we always worked at least hard enough to get that to that point. And we were all lucky enough and fortunate enough to get infantry.
All 4
and
of you made it, huh?
Yeah, the 5. No, Bobby went engineers because he wanted to do that. So one of us went to the engineers, but we all got what we wanted because we worked hard. Yeah. My buddies were pretty smart guys, and still to this day, like now I'm going to all their weddings, and one of them is my wife's cousin, so I see him plenty. But it's just like, you got to work towards something, and that's what we chose to do. Then that was like our mindset through the whole thing.
So what does that even mean, infantry? What is that? Can you even branch out into that, or?
Really hope that someone in the Army's not listening to this because I don't want to sound like a complete retard, but it's like the grunts. It's the dudes on the ground. It's their motto through the infantry is close with and destroy the enemy. So it's your ground tactical units. It's so hard to explain in like terms that people will kind of understand, but it's your grunts. It's your guys on the ground.
Yeah.
It's the dudes who you think of, as bad as it sounds. Have you seen Saving Private Ryan?
Yeah.
Those dudes are in the infantry. That's what they do. It's like you fight on the ground, small unit tactics, and you're pushing towards the last 100 yards of the fight, whatever it may be, because you're not flying, you're not shooting cannons, you're not doing anything like that. Like you are the frontline guys. And that's what we wanted to do. And granted, like there's different jobs through the infantry that you get as you go through the ranks. You're not necessarily that dude on the front shooting, pulling triggers, but you're still in that world. You're a support element for those worlds.
What are they training you with? Because you have to be ready for everything. So what are they training you in, like martial arts, shooting guns, like all that stuff, or like hand-to-hand combat? How are they preparing you?
The best way that I say it is that West Point's kind of like, it builds like a foundation for you. So you do a lot of very, very basic things, and everyone does the same curriculum. So the dudes that are going to go be weirdo logistics guys do the same thing that the guys that are going to go infantry do. Like you do the same sort of base foundational stuff. And then once you graduate, that's when you go to, they're called our officer basic courses. You go to your branch specific. So the dudes that are going to go be helicopter pilots, go to flight school. The dudes that are going to be the infantry, go to infantry officer basic school. And that's when you start to get a little more detailed into like what you're going to exactly do in the Army. So that's when we were like shooting all the different weapons, learning how to maneuver as small units in a close fight, and getting more specific training towards the infantry.
And then, so You get into the infantry. Are you done with West Point at this time?
You find out, I think, like in between your first and second semester, I believe, of senior year, what you're going to get. So you kind of know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And you're scheduled for like your school after you graduate to go to your basic school for the infantry. So that's when we knew. So we knew what we were going to go do. And it's just kind of like waiting to go to the course. And the course is like, it was like 5 months long, something like that.
So it was another course after West Point.
Oh, yeah. So after
Was this
we
Ranger
graduated,
school or this was different?
So this is right before Ranger school.
Okay.
Yeah, so we graduate West Point and we were able to take leave, so vacation for a little while. I took the full time that we were allotted, so 60 days. And then at that 60-day mark, I reported to Fort Benning, Georgia, and we did our infantry officer basic school. And it was where all the dudes from even ROTC, kids from, they didn't go directly from college. They came from like the working force, whatever, but they had a college degree and they went to this other course. We all kind of converge and we go to the infantry basic school for dudes that are infantry officers.
Mm-hmm.
So all second lieutenants, like the lowest of the low in the officer world. And you go learn sort of your infantry specific stuff. And then
so
from
does it
that,
not mean shit that you went to West Point at this point?
Everybody's the same.
They throw
Like,
everybody together again.
Oh yeah.
Dude, that's
Like,
insane. You just did all that shit to like.
honestly, that was hard because there was a guy in my squad. I can't remember his name right now, but he went to, I think it was ASU, which back in 2012 or 13, it's like the ASU was like the party school of the country.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, this dude, he's the exact same that we are. We're like, what was I doing? Why did I just waste that time?
Yeah.
You know, that's what you think of when you're 21, 22.
Right.
Now it's like, I get it. But
yeah, that
was certainly hard. But you pass on and you just keep going.
Yeah, you just
do your thing. Yeah. And then after you go to IOBC, that's when you start to test it. You basically test into going to Ranger school. You have to pass a bunch of prerequisites to get into school. And then when you go to Ranger school, the first 3 days is your test, whether or not you get in or not.
Yeah.
And
well, I hear Ranger school is they just completely strip you down to like absolute nothing, right?
Yeah. So again, not to talk about one thing for an hour specifically. Yeah. It's like, just as an example, it's what it is. It's a small unit tactics. So squad and platoon size guys. So from 10 to 40 people that you're working with, you're learning how to fight as a unit in the Army. And what they do is they make it so you're fighting like it would be in the worst possible conditions. You have no food. You can't sleep.
You can't sleep.
Constant. So the example I always tell people when they're like, oh, how much did it suck? It's like, I went into that school at 205 pounds. And I came out at 165 2.5 months later. I lost 40 pounds in 2.5 months because they feed you enough to let you survive. That's what it is.
Wow.
And then on top of that, the sleep is even worse because
Where are you guys sleeping? Is it tents or?
I mean, there's a couple days where you do like training kind of in like I won't say an administrative area, but a place where they have buildings, a place where they have cafeteria for you to go eat at. Like you do that a couple days here and there.
Yeah.
It gets less and less as you go on throughout the school. But basically what you're doing is like the last thing you do is your 10 days. It's in the last phase of Ranger school. You're 10 days in the field and you're living with what's on your back. And on top of that, every single day is a different mission. So they change like whoever's going to be the leader of that mission, all the leaders inside that mission, and they get graded on it. And every single day it's the same thing. So you sleep between 45, 30 minutes, or some days you might get like 3 hours.
How delirious were you?
Oh, dude, I can remember because you're walking a lot at night. Like all your missions kind of like end at night and you have to walk to it's called a patrol base, but it's like a campsite basically where you're going to stay and pull security all night. Yeah. I can remember being my night vision goggles. I would like say, excuse me to trees because they look like people. Jeez. You start just like seeing stuff. You're like, oh, excuse me, man. But it's a tree. Because your mind is just completely gone. Like the stuff that you think it's like an alternate universe you live in for 2.5 months.
You must have hit some pretty low points too then, huh?
Yeah, but I mean, this must be the craziest anomaly of Ranger school of all time. So I got put into a squad. So you go with the same 10 group of dudes or a group of 10 dudes the whole way through. As long as you keep passing at the same time and all that stuff. I had my now wife's cousin and his brother in my squad. It was like an administrative error. So they screwed up and they kept and they have a real Italian name, Caraccio, the two brothers. Yeah. And they would look at the Ranger instructors would look at them and be like, there's no way that's a coincidence. And you're like, yeah, I know.
They were probably so pissed.
But they didn't care. Yeah. So I had two of my cousins in my squad, which was badass because like when you need to lean on somebody, dude, when you're tired, when you're hungry, it's like and I went in the winter too.
Ooh, what state were you in?
It's in Georgia and Florida. But the worst part, the middle phase is called mountains, and it's in the Appalachian Mountains in North Georgia. And like,
sounds like a Hunger Games level or something.
Yeah, it's insane. So I mean, there would be times where you'd cuddle with a grown dude. You'd be like, yo, bro,
Yeah.
I'm freezing. Like,
Warm me up.
I still have like nerve damage in my toes because your toes just like, they freeze.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah. But they let you survive. And it's a good school. You kind of learn. Like, that was one of those things that I was thinking about when you were talking to Alessi. It's just like, it could always be worse.
Right. And really, what's going to phase you after that?
Yeah. There's an old like folklore kind of story. Who knows if it happened, but they always tell this. It's like there's two Rangers in Vietnam sitting in a foxhole together, and they're both been shot. They're surrounded by Viet Cong, and they know they're going to die soon. And one of the dudes looks at the other guy and he says, yo, at least we're not in Ranger school. Like, that's how much that place sucks. Is that, like, no one wants to go back to that place.
Dude.
But again, like I'm talking about it can always be worse. And like, that's the lesson that I really took from that. Because you can take all the, the day-to-day lessons of small unit tactics stuff. Yeah, you remember that. That's good. But at the end of the day, it's like, it teaches you how to push through something that's hard, challenging.
Yeah.
Like, learn how to set a goal for yourself. And then also know that it can always be worse.
Yeah, definitely. So you get out of Ranger school. Like, what's next after that?
After that is when there's 5 years since you started West Point, went through OBC, or the officer basic course stuff for infantry. And then after Ranger school, a couple other schools you have to go to. But after that 5 years, you go into your first unit. So you go out into the Army, the actual Army.
That is an incredible amount of shit. 5 years.
The funny thing is, like, you roll up and like, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
It's like you're put in front of this group of 30 to 40 people and you're like, you're in charge, man. And some of them, like my NCOs or my non-commissioned officers, like the sergeants.
Yeah.
Some of them had been in the Army for like 10 to 15 years, been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan 4, 5, 6 times. And I walk in, this beardless little joke of a second lieutenant. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm in charge, boys. Yeah. So
you're just winging it at that point. Well, not winging it, but I mean, you've never been there before.
You don't know your day-to-day stuff. Like you understand. I understood. And I had a little bit more of like an intellectual background. I had like an academic background on Army things, as opposed to they had always been playing the game. So you can kind of bring some knowledge in there, but they have the experience. And that's like the balance that you have between you and your sergeants.
So do you think that's something they should have to change, or like?
No, it's the best thing for the Army.
Was anybody like visibly giving you shit?
Everybody. Every single person.
Every single person.
That's the good part. And that's what like the lesson is when you're a young officer, is that you have to learn how to, like, there's always 3 things. Because I always have ROTC kids or cadets or whoever's going to be in the Army. They always ask me for like advice. Mm-hmm. And I hate to throw out just like cliches because no one wants to hear that stuff. But I mean, some of them are true. And I've held on to 3 of them. And one of them is that you have to be self-aware. So when you roll up, and I learned this the hard way, like during my time as a platoon leader, as an executive officer for a company. It's like, you have to be self-aware. You have to learn who you are as a person. Yeah. Before you can like really tap into leading other people. Like you have
leading
to like
40 individuals.
Like, just a stupid example. I'm a procrastinator. I know it. It drives Maddie, my wife, crazy. Yeah. I'm a procrastinator. I will put something off to the last moment. Yeah. But like, I know that about myself. So I have to be forward on it. Yeah. And you can, like, that's the only way you learn. Yeah. And that kind of leads into the second thing I always tell these kids is that people skills make this world go round. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a chiropractor that does podcasts with people. It doesn't matter if you're an infantry officer leading someone in combat. It doesn't matter what you do. Like, people skills rule everything. So you have to be able to talk to people. And like, that's what I learned.
Where you learned that there, you think?
Oh, 100%. Because like, you have to know how to leverage relationships between people. Like, a good example of that, I always use this. I had 2 kids. They were both specialists. So they were junior soldiers. They were like just a little bit above private. Everyone knows what private is. They're like the lowest of the low. They're just a little bit above that. One of them had a master's in mechanical engineering from ASU or U of A, one of those. And then one of them, almost positive he couldn't read. Yeah. They had the same rank. Yeah. They had the same job title. And you could walk into that and you could see it as like, oh, I just wish I could get rid of my dumb kid, get more smart kids. But it's like, no. Now that I look at it, and when I would tell my lieutenants, like my junior officers, as I progressed through the time, it's like, no. You got to figure out how to use people. You got to figure out what you can do with that kid to use his strengths. Yeah. And don't put him into something he's going to fail at, unless you want that to be some sort of lesson. I got that part. But like, you got to figure out how to work with people. And it doesn't matter, like I said, if you're going to be a chiropractor or if you're going to be in the Army. It's the same thing.
There's a lot of kids in my chiropractic school that were so book smart. They were like, just the memorization and everything was just so spot. They can regurgitate anything to you. Put an actual person in there having to communicate. This is what's going on. The book's not in front of them. Frozen. No idea what to do. And like, That's what matters.
Especially somebody who like pushes back on you or is an asshole.
Yeah.
That's when you really learn what your people skills are. Because like,
so my question for you is, how did you gear that kid in the right direction or figure out what his strengths were to help serve the unit?
I mean, that just goes with time. So I can see his face. I'm trying to say his name, but he was so dumb. It's almost funny, but he was a good kid and he was good with his hands. He might've had like a mechanics background or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I would always use him. And I didn't necessarily tell every single person exactly what they're going to do for the day. I had like 30 guys. So I had the leaders that were my subordinates, even though I hate saying that word because NCOs are not your subordinates, but I would tell them what I wanted to do for the day. And they kind of used him as the guy that would go and do some of the manual labor stuff that we needed because he liked doing that stuff. Yeah. Whereas if I had this kid I knew was a genius and we had a presentation for a class we were going to give to the whole company. Yeah. It's like, yo, I need him. Yeah. Like I need him for computer skills. Yeah. Like you just figure out what you can do. And granted, that kid there was no favorites, nothing like that. It's just like you figure out the little things you can do with people. So I'm taking that all the way into this corporate world job. I got to try to evolve and not curse so much and like say horrible things. It's going to be hard.
Well, so that was 2. Number 3.
Oh, the third one's my favorite. The third one is you have to be adaptable. And as much of a cliche as it is, it's like that's the one thing that I think the Army unintentionally does the best. Like, I don't think it's a program they have written somewhere. They're like, we have to make it this way. They throw you into jobs where you have no idea how to do it. And there's this acronym one of my company commanders used to tell me. He'd be like, oh, bro, FITFO. It's FITFO. Figure it the fuck out. So I'd go ask him some question, and whether he didn't know it or he did know it, or maybe that was part of his lesson. It's just like, you have to go figure this out. He'd just be like, no, man, FITFO. Go figure it the fuck out. Wow. And like, now I'm not afraid of going into work for my new job because my whole life has been, when I went into
figure it the fuck out.
It's just like figure it the fuck out. It's like you got to figure something. You got to figure out a way to do it. Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, you can take that anywhere. That's not Army specific. That's not anything specific. It's just like that's a good lesson to experience where I'm now comfortable going into uncomfortable situations and figure it the fuck out.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are afraid to fail when failure is definitely your friend. Just try not to make too many mistakes twice.
Yeah, you don't want to fail, but hindsight. Yeah, you always look at it and you're like, oh, I got that. Yeah. Yeah, I got that part. Like my biggest failure to date was I went to Ranger School twice. Mm-hmm. And the first time, like through my training before Ranger School and all that stuff, I had some knee problems. Yeah. I mean, I never went to go like see anybody. I didn't know what it was. It was just like it hurt. I couldn't run that well. Just
pushing through it.
I was always bitching about it. I was always just bitching about it. Like I wasn't a stud at running because it hurt so bad. And when I went to Ranger School, like the first 3 days are such a grueling physical test that 90% of dropouts from Ranger School are in the first 3 days.
Wow. 90? Around there?
Let me try to figure out these stats for you. So 30 or so % of people that go to Ranger School pass. So like 1 in every 3 guys. Out of that 70% that fail, most of that is the first 3 days. Wow. Because it's just insane. And so the last event, the last time we had to do this, like we were doing a 12-mile road march where you have, it's probably like 75-pound rucksack, so like a backpack on your back, and you got to go 12 miles in a certain time period. And I missed it by a minute and a half. And the last miles I can remember this too. My knees hurt so bad. They were swollen. They were like filled with all kinds of gross shit. Mm-hmm. I went across the line and it was like a minute and a half late. So I was at 3 hours, 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Holy shit.
And like, it's everything you ever wanted. Like my dad was a Ranger. My brother-in-law is a stud in the Ranger regiment. And here I am. I fucking failed it. I'm done. I'm out. I'm never going to wear a Ranger tab. And like, you just sit down. I sat there and they're like, yo, what are you doing? Like, get out of here, man. You're done. Yeah. I was like, oh, and that was the first time that I truly like failed something. Yeah. Like bottom of the barrel, you're done. You're done. That's it. And like, now I think about that every time I'm going into something new. It's like, I'm never going to feel that again. Yeah. I'm never going to sit on my ass and have somebody tell me like, yo, bro, get out of here. You're done. Wow. Like, oh God, it still makes me like boil inside, like thinking about that. Cause you have to bounce back somehow. And I went back 3 weeks later and I got into school.
3 weeks later, huh?
Yeah. I got into school 3 weeks later. I just classed up for the next class. I was like, I got to do this. So you got to figure it out.
How much were you under the second time?
So the first time I went, I only spent 3 days there. And then I failed. Right. So I didn't lose. I mean, I probably lost some water weight maybe.
No, I'm talking about like, did you have to do the same exact thing where you came at a minute?
I started at ground zero. And this time.
So like that actual test where you came a minute 30.
Yeah.
So what was the second time you did it?
I think I did it in like 2 hours and 55 minutes. Like everyone gets like just below, like if you do pass, no one's like crushing it. So, I mean, I passed and it doesn't matter. It's like,
exactly.
It doesn't matter if you do it in an hour. It doesn't matter if you do it in 2 hours.
Yeah.
2:59:59. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like I passed it. And that just kind of started my life of, I'm never going to fail this stuff again.
Yeah.
And it felt good.
And so you passed Ranger School, and then is it time to do your tour?
No. So I spent about 2 years, I think, because it's just the way, like, and this is the crazy thing, is that our population has no idea of who's in Iraq, who's in Afghanistan, who's in Syria, who's in Africa, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's only several units at a time deployed somewhere. It's on a rotational basis. So I just happened to kind of work into the system where my unit was at the end of their deployment cycle. So when I went in there new, they were coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent all this time while we were training up for the next deployment. And I deployed as a senior lieutenant to just on the south side of Baghdad in 2015. So it was like 2 years that I spent training in the States before I went to Iraq.
What's going through you at that point, like on the plane over to Iraq? Like pumped, nervous, like just everything? Or were you just
kind of like the funny thing about the Army is you've seen the uniforms and everything, and people have a bunch of patches on their arms you don't really understand. Your left side on your patches is the unit that you're assigned to. So when I was in the 10th Mountain Division, I wore the 10th Mountain patch on my left arm. On my right arm, because I had never deployed anywhere, it was empty. Mm-hmm. So when you're walking around work, people look at you, they're like, yo, that dude hasn't deployed. It's kind of like you've been on the hockey team and you've only been to practice. Like you've never played a game. Yeah. So it was kind of like that validation. Like finally I get to go do this thing. I've been waiting 7 years.
Wow.
I deployed, I guess, when I was 25 and I had been in the Army for 6.5, 7 years, including West Point time, which it's not the same, but still like I had been ready for this. I'd been wanting to do this. Yeah. Went during the Obama administration, the tail end of his time. So we sort of had a pretty thick leash on. It certainly wasn't a movie. I'll tell you that right now. I went over there. I did my thing. We had a job to do. We did it, but it's not as crazy as you think. That's why it's still sort of like I wasn't validated because I feel so bad when people say stuff like, oh, thank you for your service. Cause it's like, dude, there's dudes walking around with no legs, or I guess they're not walking around with legs, but you know what I mean? Like there's guys that are hurt from this thing and you're thanking me. Like I went over there for 9 months and I had fucking internet in my room. Like it's not the same. Right. But I mean, I did my time and it was a crazy, crazy existence and experience, but certainly.
What was your mental state like coming back?
I was excited because I had been married for a year when I deployed. And so my wife, Maddie, just moved home with her parents for a year. It's like, and that was hard being away for so long. It's just like, that's one of the toughest parts for me because there and you're with your buddies and you're there for like really for your buddies and for your family. That's what it is. It's like, that's why I went. That's why I wanted to go. And then when you come back, it's just like, you're so excited, but you kind of have to get back into it. Like I can remember how awkward it was to see her for the first time. Like, I loved her and we'd been talking on the phone and stuff, but it's like, it's weird. You come back.
The real thing. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, people have like long distance relationships. Like that first time you haven't seen somebody for a year, it's crazy. And then, you're riding around and you just see people like they're mad at Starbucks and you're like, dude, like it's not that bad.
Very true.
Chill out, dude.
Yeah.
Life is
perspective.
Yeah, that's one thing that kind of, it gets to me. That's why I can't watch the news anymore. I don't watch anymore because I would throw my TV out the window because when you see people and they don't understand like how good we have it here. This country is fantastic.
Well, and another thing with the news, it's like, it was on the other day and it's like 7-year-old crushed by city bus on a tricycle. What? Like, why is that national news? Like, that's awful. You're just putting awful thoughts into people's like daily activity. Think, like, how are you supposed to carry
kids
on?
In the basement?
Yeah,
just like sit down there. You're not going outside. Like, I mean, you're not getting hit by a bus today,
dude. It's just,
it's depressing.
Yeah, it's depressing, and it's like, how are you supposed to carry on with your day after seeing like 4 of those stories back to back to back? It's like, okay, I'm going to go to work. How do you think that person's day is going to go?
Oh yeah, and then when they have a good story, it's kind of like a highlight. Like, oh, JJ Watt's going to pay for all these funerals, and on to the next thing. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
All right, good. Yeah, good talk.
Yeah, man. So you got back, and so you did. Was that your final tour?
Yeah, so I only did one. Just again, how the times like kind of rolled into each other. So I came back and I went to a new post, and same thing. They had just come back. They were moving on. They actually just deployed in like 3 weeks before I actually got out of the Army.
Your unit?
So yeah, my unit out of Fort Carson, they deployed 3 weeks before I got out a couple months ago. So they're still in Afghanistan right now. That was just a life decision. I had
When did you make that decision? And why did you make that decision?
Oh boy, you're getting deep.
Oh,
I like it.
Oh yeah.
I can hear the baby upstairs, so I'm gonna get real deep. there was a lot of personal and professional reasons. And those are the two things I break it up into. So some people are just not made for the Army life, including spouses. And it didn't come easy to Madeline and I to be apart from each other for so long. Like, it sucks for everybody, but like, it really was not something that we wanted to do further. So that was one. It's like, I don't want to be away from my wife. Then the day I got to this new unit, it was my birthday, and we found out that Maddie was pregnant. And I knew they were going to Afghanistan. It's like, and I've seen some of my friends, they deployed when they had 3-month-old babies. They came back to a year-old kid, and the kid like was afraid of them. You know what I mean? Or didn't know who they were at least. And it's like, I don't want to miss those things. I want to be home for that. So that was really the decision for me. That was the final breaking point, was when we found out Charlotte was on the way. I was just like, I don't want to do this. I want to be home. I want to see my kid grow up. Like, I think my family's done plenty of time. I feel like I at least did something for this country. I served my country, so I don't regret anything. And I'm excited that now I get to hear her upstairs screaming. I get to put her to bed every night. It's like, I would be in Afghanistan right now. So, I mean, the personal stuff was easy. The professional stuff it's harder to admit. It's harder to swallow. I don't want to rag on the Army because it's done so much for me. It's full of such incredible people. This is the one thing that just like drove me nuts, is that like I call it incentivized mediocrity. The most qualified dude that's a captain in the Army. So like, I got a buddy right now. He's a Green Beret. He's an absolute stud. He's 6'5", 250 pounds of fucking steel. He's been to every school you can possibly imagine. He had a 4.0 as a mechanical engineer from West Point. He makes a certain amount of money. Now, take on contrast to that, the fattest, dumbest dude in the Army that has the same rank, they make the same amount of money. It's like, no matter how well you do, you don't progress unless it's the time. So you have to be in for a certain amount of time to go to this rank, in a certain amount of time to go to this job. So like, there's just dudes that didn't work hard.
You can't jump that.
And there's very minimal jumps that dudes make, and it's very rare. So like, working hard didn't get you anywhere. It got you the personal satisfaction. Like, I tried hard because it was my job, because I loved what I did. But at the end of the day, there was a dude that I was in a unit with that got fired from being the same job as I was after 2 months. And he read emails for somebody for the next year. Meanwhile, I went on to do a tougher job. And we made the same amount of money. That just drove me nuts all day long. And that kind of was one of those professional things that I'm ready to go and work hard, progress based on my ability. And it just like, I hate to say it, but it really was one of those big things that forced me out.
What did you think after being in the Army for 7 years? What did you think you'd be interested in getting out? Like, what were you gravitating towards?
I got really, really lucky because my dad got out in 2013, like I said, and he started moving into the corporate world. Granted, he went out as a, I guess, 55-year-old man who had some pedigree, and he got hired into a job like that because they want dudes like that all the time. I was a very different type of person. I got lucky in the sense also that my wife, her dad is just a savage businessman. So I had somebody from like my dad who transitioned from the Army to the corporate world, but also I had someone who was pure corporate, private sector that worked for himself. So I had these two competing extremes of like, guys I could go to for advice. And I came down to, my dad's a consultant right now for the Army. He consults guys that run projects for the Army. And then, my father-in-law kind of pushed that in, and I figured out like, I still don't know what I want to do, but I do know that the best opportunity for me was to move into one of these big firms as a consultant, because I'll see a bunch of different projects at one time, or not at one time, but like, say my first 18 months that I'm on this new job, I might be on 6 different projects that work for all types of different industries, and I get to see all kinds of business as opposed to being pigeonholed.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Into something. So for me, I didn't have an interest. I didn't want to go be like a space engineer or anything. I don't have a specific thing that I love. So I think this is a good way to get like a broad look into the real world, into like big boy jobs, see what I like. And then, I mean, if I like doing this after 3 years, I'll keep doing it. But if I want to go more specific, I can jump into that.
Yeah. That's wild. And so you're starting up soon, right?
On Monday.
There you go.
I'm terrified, dude. I have to walk in and put a smile on my face and not call anybody dumb. And it's going to be a rough go, but I think I'll be all right. Yeah. I don't know how, I feel like people still talk like that out of the Army, but I guess we'll figure that part out.
Definitely.
I guess we'll figure that part out.
Definitely. What do you say to kids that come up to you now? They're like, I want to be in the Army, or I want to go to West Point, or just be in the service. Like, what's your initial, like, I know you're not a cliche guy. And I know you probably tell them straight up.
No. So I try not to do that because people won't remember the cliches you tell them. Like, people that are listening to this, if any, have already probably forgot the 3 things that I talked about that were the lessons I learned. the biggest thing that I say to them is like, I had these heroes and I wanted to be like them, and they were in the Army.
Yeah.
So I joined the Army. The other thing is the Army was the greatest decision that I ever made to become who I am today. So when you tell that to a kid, it's just like, they think, okay, like, so this guy liked what he did, made him who he is today. And then it maybe motivates them towards going. And if a lot of them have more specific kind of questions that I'll answer, but I just try to push towards like, it felt so good to serve my country, to be a part of something that was bigger than you. And if that's what you want to do, then it's a great way to go.
That's what I love about that advice. You're not saying you need to join the Army. You're not saying you shouldn't join the Army. You're just saying what your experience was and what it did for you.
And I mean, not everyone's cut out for it. It's like a weird, I remember all you guys, like when I would mention something like, I'm gonna be in the Army, it was kind of like, we were kids. So it was like, it's like, I remember some people being like, well, why do you want to do that? Like, that sounds kind of stupid. Yeah. But it's like, I mean, you just don't understand. It's like some people are cut for it, some people aren't.
Absolutely. And so that was one thing I wanted to ask you, but out of all your takeaways from all the Ranger school bullshit, all the West Point stuff you went through, just if you were to leave the audience with a piece of advice that you've taken with you throughout your experience through life, and I know it's a loaded question, but what would you leave people with?
Man, that's tough with like an immediate reaction. I'm just going to go back to those three things that I talked about. It's like, no matter what you want to do, whether you want to be in the Army, whether you want to be a chiropractor, to move forward and to be successful in what you want in life, you have to be 1, self-aware, 2, able to work with other people, and 3, adaptable. And like, you take those things, you learn them from experience, you think about them as you're going through those experiences, you come out on the other side a better person, and you'll be successful in whatever you want to do. If you don't do those things, I've watched it, and I mean, you're just going to bomb.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, very bright future ahead, my friend. I'm very excited to see what you get into, and
let's hope so, man.
A lot of great things coming your way, pal.
Yes.
And you're pretty close. We gotta get together soon.
Yeah, I know. We will. We'll get up there.
All right, brother. Thanks again. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, subscribe, give us 5 stars, and leave a review. It really helps boost the podcast and spread the good word. My chiropractic practice is located in West Orange, New Jersey at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. You can also find us on Facebook at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. All of my information is on my website at drkevinpecca.com, drkevinpecca.com. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Kevin Pecca for podcast episodes, patient testimonials, and educational videos. I have daily affirmations and inspirational quotes on Instagram at Easel Affirmations, EASEL Affirmations. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at drkevinpecca@gmail.com, drkevinpecca@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Cheers.